Chapter 23. Peeking out at the warm light that woke me from a dream I could have died happy in, I noted a delivery truck backed up to Thomas's front door. So much for arriving in the afternoon. It wasn't much of a surprise. The people who lived around here had been here as long as I could remember, and so had their furniture. Thomas's purchases were possibly the biggest ever made at that store. Pulling out a hair tie from the small wooden jewelry box on my dresser, I pulled my hair into a messy bun. "You up?" Mama asked, peeking her head inside the door and letting in the sweet aroma of bacon and eggs. "Yes, ma'am." I pulled on a pair of blue jean cutoffs and a razor-backed blue tank top. My legs prickled with chill bumps as the air from the hall moved over them, but I knew 5 seconds outside would cure that. "As soon as you finish getting ready, head on over and help Thomas." "But I was going to help Daddy." "I'm going to help your daddy today," Mama said in her no-nonsense voice. "Jenny is staying over at the Johnsons'. Thomas has a front room full of boxes that need sorting." I glanced back at the clock to be sure I had the time right. Yep, 7:15. Apparently, I was the only one who'd slept last night. "Can I at least eat breakfast first?" I muttered, shuffling behind her into the hall on my way to the bathroom. Or had they moved on to lunch already? "There's a plate in the microwave," Mama called back as she made her way down the stairs. She looked younger in shorts and a t-shirt with her hair pulled back off her face than she did in the house dresses she'd clung to since Jenny'd been born. After devouring my 2 strips of bacon and 1 piece of toast that was left, I trudged across the street, the warm pavement heating my bare feet. The sound of a hammer met me on the porch. Through the screen I could see Thomas assembling the last leg on the kitchen table. "Mornin'." He looked up as I pulled open the squeaky screen door. "Setting the table upright," he added. "For some people." "Hardy har har," I scowled, planting my hand on my hip. "Forgive me for sleeping until good daylight. Consider it beauty sleep." He chuckled, carrying the table into the kitchen. "The last thing you need is beauty sleep, Bree." "What do you think?" he asked, gripping the back of his shirt and tossing it on the leather couch that took up most of the opposing wall. His broad chest glistened in the sunlight, filtering through the open door, highlighting the dark tan he'd acquired in the past few weeks working the farm. I couldn't help but notice the sweat that ran like a slow leak down the center of the muscles he'd clearly been working this morning. What did I think? I think he needed to up the air conditioner and put some clothes back on. "It looks good there," I said, forcing my eyes from his chest to the new table. "Maybe inch it over just a little so it's more centered." "There?" he asked, giving it a slight push. "Perfect," I managed a small smile. Grabbing a chair, I started doing what I could to make the living room a walkable space again. The dining room set did look great in the small kitchen, just like I'd imagined it would. I'd have to remember to bring over a vase to go in the center. Wildflowers grew in abundance in the backyard. I'd always taken Mama a handful every time I'd found myself over here, wishful thinking the past few years. When I took the box cutter and started opening the last chair, Thomas stopped me. "Bree, if you don't mind, I brought my things over this morning and set them in the bedroom," he said, gesturing down the hall to the smallest of the two. "Would you see if you can make sense of it while I finish up in here? I hate unpacking about as much as you hate assembling furniture." "I don't hate it, per se." He laughed heartily, ripping open the box I'd started on. Pulling out a pack of screws and dumping the wood pieces to the floor, he crooked a grin. "If this is how your face looks when you're enjoying yourself, the times we've spent together must have been torturous for you." Did he have to bring that up? I rubbed the sudden chill from my arms and started down the hall. "Fine, but if I see anything naked, we're having another bonfire." His laughter carried into the room behind me. "Why don't you take the master?" I called back, only to find him standing in the doorway watching me dump a box of clothes on the plastic-wrapped mattress. "I guess it never occurred to me," he said thoughtfully, glancing around the small room and rubbing the light stubble that darkened his chin. Trying to ignore the fact that I was sorting his boxer shorts, I added, "You really should. It's twice the size, and I bet the view at sunset is amazing." Placing the boxers in the top drawer of a dresser I recognized from our guest room, I grabbed some hangers from the closet. "What you should really do is paint. Add some color to this place. All these white walls are depressing. Makes me think of a doctor's office." He frowned, taking note of the 4 bare walls around us as he scratched his head. "You're right," he said, grabbing my arm and hastily pulling me out the doorway. I tossed the hangers to the mattress in my haste. "Where are we going?" To get paint, he said, patting the pockets of his blue jeans before grabbing his keys from the kitchen counter and walking out to the truck. You comin'? He asked, looking back to find me standing in the front doorway, holding the screen open. You go, I said, rushing back to the couch for his t-shirt and tossing it to him. I'll keep unpacking. He shook his head with a grin I knew too well. This was your idea. Besides, what do I know about color schemes? After retrieving my sandals, we spent the next hour selecting paint colors for each room of the house. Thomas's tastes were simple like my own. Either that or he was just agreeing with every word I said. We chose a soft gray for the kitchen to brighten the entry, since you could see right into the kitchen from the front door, and decided to leave the living room in off-white. The bedrooms and bathroom would be the same ash gray with white trim. After Thomas found some large drop cloths, brush, and painter's tape, we found ourselves back at the house and paint splattered. Thankfully, Katie's brothers had noticed our arrival, and we'd had a house full of help most of the day. Katie and I had taken the master bedroom and bathroom while Thomas tackled the living room. Thomas stuck Katie's brothers in his old room, so if they screwed something up, it wouldn't matter as much. His words, not mine. At supper time, Mama brought over enough chicken and buttermilk biscuits for everyone. After eating, we'd lost John Tyler to a game of hide and seek, and by dark, we'd trickled down to only Thomas, Katie, and myself. All I'm saying is if it were me, I wouldn't be able to concentrate is all, Katie said, her blonde head bobbing as she danced to the pop song that played on the clock radio she'd discovered in one of Thomas's boxes. The second coat of paint had dried, and we were now pulling the tape from the windows. Boys are your weakness, not mine, I reminded her, balling the tape and shooting it toward the large black garbage bag in the hallway. Men, Breland, men are my weakness, she argued, puffing out her slightly larger than average chest and giving it a little shake. I've moved on from boys. Forget college. You'll get a full ride to hell one of these days, Katie. So not funny, she chuckled, tossing a ball of sticky tape into my hair. Sounds like y'all having too much fun back here, Thomas said, suddenly appearing in the doorway. His dark blue jeans were smeared with cream-colored paint from where he'd probably wiped his hands, but his gray t-shirt and black ball cap were impeccably clean. Katie and I looked like we had as much paint on us as the walls. Even the hairs on my arms were sticky with it. Too much laughing, not enough work, he winked. Sorry, Mr. Thomas, Katie kidded in her best Southern Belle impression. Quirking a grin, Thomas grabbed the opposite end of the drop cloth I was busy folding. Thanks, I said, meeting his eyes as he stepped toward me, passing the cloth to my hands. Reaching to my hair, he came back with a ball of painter's tape. Ouch, I complained as a few strands of my messy bun pulled loose with the tape. My bad, he said, gently stroking my hair back in place, curving it behind my ear. I missed the ponytail, he added softly. It didn't escape my attention that he didn't step away. I'll keep that in mind, I said, blushing as I peeled the sticky tape from his hand. We both started when Katie cleared her throat. Well, if you guys don't need any more help. No, Thomas and I said in unison, for two totally different reasons. Thomas was dismissing her, and my heart raced painfully at that very possibility. I was really hoping you'd stick around, I said, tearing my eyes from Thomas with a nervous laugh. There's no telling what I'll find in these boxes. I gestured toward the 5 boxes stacked in the corner of the only dry wall in the room. The gray was much deeper dry and gave the room a homey feel. Katie's brows peaked. Of course, I wasn't in a hurry to go home yet anyway. Thomas looked puzzled between the two of us before heading back down the hall to grab the queen mattress. He and I assembled the bed frame while everyone else had taken Mama up on her peach pie offer. As soon as he was out of sight, Katie started dramatically fanning out the neck of her yellow halter. Oh, my word, she sighed, her sweaty blonde locks framing her face. How are you not on fire right now? That boy is hotter than blue blazes, Breland, and the heat between you two? Well, let's just say I won't need my whore in church reference anymore. You can't tell me you don't feel that. Pulling my hair tie loose, I sighed, shaking out my thick hair as it fell down my back. I took a moment to massage my aching scalp. Yes, I feel it, Katie, I said, careful to keep my voice low enough that it wouldn't carry. I've always felt it, but he clearly doesn't. I held my hand up to stop her from interrupting. Not in the same way. You are so wrong, she said, grabbing a box and starting for the door. Trust me, I'm not, I said, following close behind. Her eyes gleamed as she glanced back at me. Oh, yes, you are, and I'm going to prove it to you. Katie, what are you? I started just as we reached Thomas. Katie pushed the box she carried into his hands and pretended to wipe sweat from her brow. Thomas, don't hate me, but I'm plumb tuckered out. I think I'm going to call it a night. She tossed me a knowing smile that made my palm twitch. One of these days I was going to unintentionally lay Katie out cold. Sure thing, Thomas said questioningly, turning to walk her to the door. Thanks for y'all's help today. I really appreciate it. Anything for a cute new neighbor. She gave him a tight squeeze, peering over his shoulder with an open-mouthed smile that made her look like a goofy 12-year-old who'd just seen a bare bottom. Thomas turned back, catching the scowl on my face. You quitting on me too? You know I'm not a quitter, I said, stomping into the master bedroom. Katie would pay for this. The grays in the new headboard looked beautiful against the dark walls, leaving the large picture window on full display to the left. Dropping the box, I stepped around Thomas and found the basket with the sheets Mama had washed this morning. I chose the white set, they'd be cooler for summer, and fanned them over the mattress. Wordlessly, Thomas took the other side, and together we made his bed. Katie's parents had given him a quilt with faded blues, greens, and browns that added the finishing touch. I could feel Thomas's eyes on me, but I ignored the nagging voice that sounded a lot like Katie in my head that begged me to look at him. Instead, I grabbed a stack of t-shirts from the box and started to hang them in the small walk-in closet. In another life, I could picture Thomas and I here under different circumstances, but I'd foregone that fantasy some time ago. Lost in a world that only existed in my head, I started to arrange the rest of the clothes in the dresser. Before I knew it, the last box was empty, and I found myself sitting on the edge of the bed, contemplating my future, wondering when and if I'd ever meet anyone that would take my mind and heart away from this place. I nearly jumped out of my skin when the front screen slammed with a loud bang echoing through the house. It was well past midnight. Walking quickly to the living room, I saw Thomas through the door, gripping the porch railing as he stared at the ground. Thomas, I said, easing the creaky wooden screen door open. Everything all right? He didn't answer, his back rising noticeably beneath his shirt. Thomas? His head jerked to the side as he glanced over his shoulder. Oh, Bree, he said, startled. I didn't hear you come out. Is everything okay? I asked, letting the door go with a soft thud and hesitantly stepping onto the porch. Being in the Tyner's old house probably brought back a lot of bad memories for him, though until now I would have never known it. Staring out over the dark, swaying grass that was in a bad need of cutting, he sighed heavily and turned his ball cap around, pulling it low over his eyes. Yeah, I'm fine. Look, he said, pushing off the railing and turning to face me. He looked a little pale. I appreciate all your help today, but maybe you should head home. It's late. Sure, yeah, you're probably tired, I nodded, starting for the steps. I'll see you tomorrow. Before my foot met the first step, he stopped me. Bree? Gripping the handrail in one hand, I casually glanced back, expecting him to remind me of something I was forgetting, but he didn't. The brim of his hat shielded his eyes in darkness, but even in the dark, the simmering depths staring back at me took my breath. Moving without thinking, I backtracked a step, at the same time he took a step forward. His hand grasped the rim of my cutoffs, his fingers curving my hip as he held me gently in place. Not that I could have moved, had I wanted to. Staring into the look I'd avoided all night, I was reduced to the mental capacity of a 15-year-old with her first crush. The only thing I wanted to do was crawl inside those deep green, smoldering eyes and live out the rest of my days. Instead, I closed my eyes. It was the only way to regain my composure. I was a grown woman. I couldn't keep letting him do this to me. Pulling in a breath through my teeth, I opened my eyes to find him mere inches away. His sweet, warm breath grazed my cheek, sending shivers down my spine. Covering his hand with my own, I pulled it away from my body. Thomas, I said, going against every single nerve in my body. Please don't kiss me. His brow bunched, the pain in his eyes evident, but he didn't argue. He let me go. I made it to the backside of my house before the gravity of what I'd done truly set in. He was going to kiss me. I knew it like I knew my own name, but I just couldn't take it anymore. My heart couldn't handle another fissure without breaking all over again. He was killing me with all the back and forth. As much as it pained me, if he was looking for someone to hook up with, Katie would have been a better option. I just couldn't do it. As extraordinary as I knew it would be to be with him, I would always want more. Thomas had all but told me anything between us would be casual. and as much as I wished it weren't so, I loved him so much it hurt. How on earth was I going to make it through another stifling, humid August heat wave with him living right across the street? Crawling into bed, I prayed for a cold front.